Well, hello everyone. It's lovely to see you all in person. Plenty of familiar faces and a few new ones as well, which is great. Welcome to everyone who's streaming as well. Hopefully that's the camera, so when I look at you, it's in the right place. I'd like to try to get us all aligned around two concepts this morning. The first is Digital Experience Platform, or DXP for short, and the second is composability. They're both important terms, important because every presentation that follows assumes that we understand the same thing when I say either of those terms. So what exactly is a digital experience platform? How is it different to what we have now, and what problems is it meant to solve? One way to be able to explain it is to start with something I think we all understand and know: content management. So content management, I think we've all been exposed to it for some time, is a tool set that makes it easy for us to be able to publish content to the web. It evolved quite a few years ago and solved the technical problems that non-technical people had when they're saying, how do I get this information out to the wider world? It also helped organisations when organisations said, I need to manage what these people are publishing so it looks the same, it's got the same design on the outside, I've got workflows and permissions, and I can control the quality of what I'm publishing out to the world. Now, CMSs did a good job of that, but then the world began to get a bit more complicated. We started to get more channels, for example, smartphones and tablets, so we needed to be able to publish to different locations. And expectations of what people could do online began to shift quite a lot too. Right? People expected the experience to be richer. They wanted to be able to do things like transact, they wanted personalisation, and they wanted to be able to self-serve because it's convenient if you can go online and solve a problem for yourself. Now, of course, you guys as organisations want them to do that too. That's where digital transformation happens for many organisations. If you can move people to an online channel, they can help themselves, they like it, and you get great business efficiencies from it. Now, at this point, content management isn't quite the right word anymore, is it? And that's why we began to shift the language to digital experience management. You started to say, I'm building experiences to different locations and I'm doing more than just managing content at this place. We needed a range of new features to be able to accommodate that. And so, the evolution of something called a DXP happened. What is a DXP? What does it promise to make easy? What problems does it solve? Why will my life be better if I have one? Well, essentially, we think there are 5 things that DXPs do to make your life easier in this new world. The first is obviously they help you build different types of experiences. It should be easy for you to build large websites and manage people working across them, and equivalently easy to build just a simple campaign website, something small that you need to be able to publish easily. You want to be able to work with things like intranets, portals. There's a whole range of different types of things that you need to be able to publish, and if you have a tool set that gives you that flexibility and agility, well, then that's exactly what a DXP is meant to facilitate. So different types of experiences. The second I already mentioned is channels. You want to be able to publish to different locations and manage what's being published so that there's some level of continuity when people operate across these channels. We know a bad experience when we see one. For example, if you happen to start doing something on your mobile device and then you think, you know what, I'm going to move across to a desktop or something like that where I've got a keyboard and a larger screen because it'll be a little bit easier. And then you arrive and you find out you can't do the same thing. The functions aren't the same on the website. Or worse still, I have to re-enter the same content. Or even worse still, the content's not the same because they're built completely separately from each other. So you feel disconnected in the way that you deal with that organisation. So the capacity to be able to manage the way you publish content and coordinate that to different channels is an important part of what a DXP does. I mentioned personalisation a second ago. Personalisation is obviously really important if you're trying to sell things to people. If you can personalise, it's a great way of persuading and influencing people's actions. But it's also useful in usability. If you can help surface information that's useful for the individual and save them time trying to find the thing that they're after, that's a great use of personalisation as well. The next thing a DXP does is the self-service bit. And as I said, we're a long way from content at this point. To allow people to self-serve, you need to work across different systems. So you need to integrate well, and you need to build these little applications, really, that make it possible for people to follow business logic and follow through what they're actually trying to do. You need different tool sets to do this well, so we're beyond content management at this point. And now, the final element of the 5 is when you're building any of these things, you want to make it easy to manage them. You don't want to have to worry about the performance, the security. You want a platform to solve those problems for you. So whenever you're building something, you just don't have to think about it. You also want to know things like your compliance is looked after. I don't want to have to worry about records keeping. I don't want to have to worry about being able to audit what I actually have. If I've got the right tools there, it will make operating in this digital space a lot easier for me. Okay, so those things together add up to the idea of a promise of a DXP. So when we're talking about that today, that's what we mean. Second term, composability. Who's heard the term composability in the context of DXPs? Just stick up your hand so I get an idea. A few, and they're mostly Squiz people who are putting up their hands at the moment, right? You're going to hear this term more and more across the whole industry because I genuinely think this is a trend that stands to completely disrupt the way our experience operates at the moment, so it's important. It's an important trend. It's a complicated concept. I'll do my very best to make it simple. If I don't, hopefully it'll come clearer with examples through the rest of the day, but I'll do my best. If you look up composability online, you'll get a few different answers. One common answer as to what composability means is I can take best-of-breed products and make them part of my digital experience platform. That's true, but it's only part of the story. I think that undersells the promise of what composability can mean for each of us. So let me try to explore that, and you'll see why I think this is more than that. So composability could be defined as the ability to bring different services together to compose new offerings. Now, I know you go, what the hell is that? That seems pretty esoteric. And I'm glad you're asking what are services, because the next slide's going to help explain that. So services is another way of saying capabilities, so digital capabilities from your platform. And an example of some of the services you expect to be able to access on a DXP are things like controls for the way you publish and present information online. You also need to be able to control who can access information, so you need to be able to log into the platform itself and control who can do what, just as much as controlling who can see what once you've published that information. You need ways of being able to manage content and data. You need to be able to integrate with different systems, you need to be able to personalise, manage things like workflow as part of that self-service element, and find things across the platform. These are all examples of services that you expect of a DXP. It's not an exhaustive list, but hopefully it makes sense when I'm saying when I talk about a service, what these things are, or what do each of these things mean. Now here's one other important point. Each of these services, if you can use them together well, you can do more. They don't have to be in the same piece of software. They could be separate, but if you can call upon them to build a common digital experience, that's what I mean by composing a solution. For example, we know the search bit can be taken as its own product, or it can be used as part of a broader platform. Data and content are separate. We've got Matrix as a tool for content, Data Store as a tool for being able to store data. But you can use them all together as part of the solutions that you compose. So the services can be separate, but you can build them together into one common solution. Something like a portal, for example. I need to use each of those elements to have one common solution that I build at the end. Okay, let's get to the next piece, the P in DXP. What does that mean? The platform element. They become a platform. These services aren't just separate, discrepant things. They become a platform when they're easy to use together. They feel the same. So if something like logging in and permissions works exactly the same across each of the different services, it feels like one product. It feels like one platform. If clipping them together and building something uses the same conventions and the same ways of working, it feels like one product. They don't have to be sold as one product. You can take just the bits that you want when you want them to be able to build something. Also, once you're using them as a platform, there should be ways of being able to reuse what you've built. So if I've built, for example, a connection to another system, maybe I'm talking to my CRM system, Salesforce or something like that, can I take one that someone has already made and use it again? Because that's going to save me a lot of time. Or what if I built something bigger, a template for building websites faster, or maybe making portals quickly, or something along those lines? If I can make solutions that if I can take solutions that people have already built, including yourselves, and use them again across these different services, you become a platform. Then finally, there are certain things that the platform manages for you to take worry away. Things like, how do I upgrade everything? If I start choosing different services and putting them together, I take on the burden of thinking, how am I going to manage all of this? If you are taking services that have been built with platform in mind, then some of those issues are solved for you. I don't have to worry about upgradability, visibility on how those things are performing, and by visibility I mean things like logs, audit trails, monitoring, those sorts of different functions, right? Okay, so I've just described core services in a digital experience functionality and then platform. But the third bit that I was defining was composability. So what do we mean by composability? Two things. The first is the ability to add new services and make those services feel as if they're part of the same platform. What's a new service? Maybe I want to add events management or a new payment gateway or a translation engine. There's all sorts of amazing tools now that are getting better at AI translation of things into different languages or transcribing videos to text. There's a whole range of different tools and services that you might want to be able to grab and make them part of your DXP, make it feel like you can use them in what you build. So that's one part of composability. But if you do it properly, and this is where we actually think there's a lot of room for disruption, you should also be able to substitute some of those core services or add new ones. Okay, what on earth do I mean by that? Take content, for example. Increasingly, content doesn't just live in one system within our organisations. Many organisations have multiple CMSs in their environment. Is there a way that you can treat all of those CMSs as one platform? Well, that's the promise of composability. If you can treat the content from those different systems and then apply these rules around it, publish experiences that work across those solutions and republish back into those other platforms. If you can do things like speak to different channels, manage personalization, build self-service facilities, and then look after the whole thing, govern the whole thing as if it's one platform, then you have a truly composable DXP. And that's the opportunity at the moment and what's really exciting for us and what's driving us at the moment.